On this week's episode of the Two Pointers podcast, Trevor and I are going to talk about Steph Curry finally breaking the all-time 3-points record, the growing COVID problems in the NBA. We'll be back here with news or snooze, College Hoops Corner, and of course, trivia. Next. Welcome back to the Two Pointers podcast. I'm Josh.
And I'm Trevor.
And we're back after a week off. We had to take a little time, step back. Just as COVID issues are causing problems in the NBA, they're also making their way through the Two Pointers podcast. I decided not to have a solo pod last week, so Trevor could have some time to recover. How are you feeling, Trevor?
Man, I have never felt better. It was a very uncomfortable week. Mild for the listeners, long story short, pretty mild symptoms. I felt better within the first 3 or 4 days, but a lot of time off. Just wear your mask in public and just be as safe as you can, guys. It's one of those things. I don't even know how I could have gotten it. I also live with a medical professional. So at the end of the day, I feel fine. Voice, as y'all can tell, probably sounds about 80%. And hey, man, I wouldn't want to be doing a pod on any other day. We're actually doing this on a Sunday, funny enough, because our schedules are completely thrown off. So the week of Christmas here on the 19th is when we're recording this on a Sunday. But, man, I am glad to be back after a stir-crazy week. And really, I mean, the other reason we put this up is there's nothing to talk about. We pretty much had to wait for Steph to break the record. It's kind of my corny transition into Steph. But we kind of had to just wait it out because he didn't do it on Monday last week, and he didn't do it. He had to wait till the Tuesday, which would have been a lovely episode if we record on it on Monday. That would have been awesome to throw an episode together. And then, oh, by the way, next night in Madison Square Garden, Steph breaks the record. So I guess initial reactions, what'd you think? Where are we with the Steph Curry thing? Glad we waited, I guess, first of all.
Why we waited is I got very much tired of all this big NBA news happening the day after we record a podcast. So I just figured we could push that off. And now we waited until the next Sunday. So it's been almost a week. But obviously, big congratulations to Steph Curry. It wasn't like a shock. It was all kind of everybody just waiting with bated breath for him to finally achieve that record. I think what's going to be interesting to see in the next couple of years is just how far he's going to extend the lead and if anybody's going to get close. There was a period of time before injuries kind of hit him that I think everyone thought like Steph will break the record, taking Ray Allen's spot, but then eventually like Clay would pass him because Clay was like going at a quicker clip and he was younger. But then with 2 years of Clay being hurt, it seems like that's probably not going to happen.
Great timing on asking you. I'll just ask you the question early: does this become what we call in the NBA an unbreakable record? Example, Wilt's rebound record. The next closest active player we'll get to in a moment. Actually, I have a follow-up question on this, but the next closest person I believe is an untouchable number. I believe the closest person is Dwight Howard, and he's not breaking Wilt's record by any stretch. So, does this become the next unbreakable record?
No. It's not like a disrespect to Steph Curry in any way. I fully believe that we'll see the record broken in our lifetime because the game, like the difference between like Wilt's record's unbreakable because he was so much bigger than everyone else that played at the time and he played so many more minutes than players would normally play in a game. Like the guy played 48 a game basically. And so he was able to grab all those rebounds. He was the only guy for the whole team. We don't have one player that's that dominant or that much taller than everyone and playing a full 48 minutes. The game that Steph has set this record in is trending further in the direction of taking more threes. So by pure volume and players getting better at shooting threes, someone's going to break it unless they pass a rule to move the three-point line back. That's the only way that it could become that unbreakable record.
So I'll slightly push back only on the case of, I did see this get brought up. I want to say it was on a broadcast of some kind. The problem I have is finding where I got this from. I tried I tried to find it. I thought it might have been on TikTok. I thought it might have been on Instagram. I tried to find the source of this, but I saw something to the effect of the closest or the next generation of guys that could do it that's possible is guys like Trae Young, Luka Doncic, et cetera, right? The issue is, though, something to the effect of they would have to average for about 12 and a half to 13 seasons of, almost 300 threes a game to reach that clip at a reasonable number.
I don't think 300, not 300 threes a game. What do you mean?
Not a game, sorry. A season.
Gonna have to average 900 points per game.
Sorry, a season, yes. I don't know how much I believe in it. I think the only reason I agree with you is because of the trend of the game. I think it stays on this trend for quite some time because of Steph and his impact on the change, but I'm not saying the NBA is going to go back to this 90s bully ball in the next 30 years, but NBA history is a very satire and hilarious thing. And I think it will happen or change. It's just a matter of how the game adjusts for this kind of almost like an overcorrection of sorts. But no, regardless, I don't think it changes either. I don't think it's unbreakable. I just think it's going to be a very tough record to break, especially if he stays at a pace where, like, yes, he's smaller. He's a, quote, smaller guard, but he'll probably play until he's 36, 37, we might guess.
Yeah, and I think, and also just thinking of other records, there was, even if you think a record's unbreakable, there was a time when everyone kind of thought the all-time points record that Kareem had was unbreakable. And it looks pretty likely at the pace that he's going that LeBron James will probably eventually eclipse that points record from Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, barring LeBron surprise retiring at the end of the season. But it looks like he's kind of pacing in that direction. So a lot of times, even if we think a record's not going to be broken, it still can be.
So that's a great segue because a great article here from NBA.com, reporter Sean Powell, basically just saying, hey, well, there's a record that we were knowing was coming, but will LeBron pass Kareem? Let's look at some other NBA records that could soon be broken. I'll go over them quickly with you here. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is 38,387 points. The active leader is the only thing he lists here, and then a small paragraph. I'll spare you the paragraph. Active leader is LeBron with 35,811. That's going to be broken here. At the earliest, technically, is the end of next season, believe it or not. So I guess the question for you is, do we agree on that one? Yes, you've already said that, right? The minutes leader is Kareem as well, with 57,446. LeBron active leader at 50,686. So that one's LeBron's probably the only chance on that one. Carmelo's the other active guy in the top 25, and he's 24th with a lot less than Kareem. Free throws made, 97-87 is Karl Malone, and then LeBron is the active leader with 76-40.
That one's not getting broken by LeBron.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
Maybe by somebody else, but not by LeBron.
Even at the closest next there, I don't. James Harden is number 2 with 67-44, and he's already on the other side of 30. So I just think it's going to be a tough one. Karl might have that one for quite some time. Here's 2 eye-opening ones. 2 really, actually 3. Assist all time, of course, we've talked about is John Stockton with 15,806. The active leader is Chris Paul with 10,558. He is 5,000 away, and he's 37 years old.
That doesn't tell you how good John Stockton was. I don't know what will.
Oh, here it gets even better. If Paul averaged 500 assists a season in the last 4 seasons, he would need to roughly play 10 more years to pass John Stockton. Oh, goodness. So, yeah, not even more John Stockton love. I don't know if we even needs it, but 3 players all time who reached 1,000 assists in a single season. A couple of people did it a couple of times. Kevin Porter, Isaiah Thomas. Stockton did it 7 times. So I just don't see it being possible. The other one was the steals lead. John Stockton also has that 32.65. Paul has 23.89. It says, once again, Paul is chasing the ghost of John Stockton with these records. Yeah, that one's not getting touched. The next closest guy is LeBron with 2,000. He is 1,200 behind John Stockton. Not happening. The last two is Hakeem with blocks, and Dwight is 1,600 behind. Moving on. And then rebounds. This was the one I actually wanted to kind of at least make sure got mentioned last. Wilt has 23,924. I don't believe Wilt played 15 seasons in the NBA, to be completely upfront. I believe he played 14, if I'm correct. I'll double check myself. He did not play like this crazy 20-year career. Regardless if he did or not, Dwight Howard is the active leader with 14,405 rebounds. He is basically 10,000 behind Wilt, and he's probably close to a career's end here in the next couple of years. So
take a guess real quick what Wilt's rebounds per game average on his entire career was.
I did see this not long ago looking up some stuff, so I'm pretty sure it's north of 16. I want to say it's 17.8 or somewhere near
22.9.
Okay.
And his most average in a single season was his second year in the NBA. He averaged 27.2 per game.
I'm surprised that's not longer.
Wilt is also, I'm guessing, I'm not checking this. I'm just going to throw this number out there because I'm going to claim that it's right. Because if it's not, then I've really missed something in NBA history. Wilt is the only member of the distinguished 50 and 25 club. In his third season, he averaged 50.4 points per game and 25.7 rebounds per game in his third season in the NBA.
Yeah, that's got to be right.
He averaged 50 a game.
Can I tell you the one thing? I'm pretty sure that's the same season that he averaged 48.1 minutes per game. He averaged more minutes there than there are in an NBA game.
48 and a half, yeah.
Yep, it was 40. So they played overtime, and he played every single minute of that.
He played every minute, yeah.
Every single minute. He didn't take a single. Yeah,
25 years old.
I don't care what the height difference was for Wilt. Wilt was unstoppable. All-time track athlete as well.
He only was a 61% free throw shooter at the time as well.
That's nuts, man. So yeah, nothing really crazy on Steph. It's not a Wilt segment. It's a Steph Curry segment, obviously, but it's worth noting that those records are probably not going to be broken, except for probably the minutes and probably the points with LeBron. So congrats to Steph. While we're not taking too long on this, is he did already break it in our eyes with the all-time combined with the playoffs. We already gave him an entire segment on it. We obviously are very clear on how we feel about Steph. Great appreciation. I also do think it's hilariously poetic that he broke it in Madison Square Garden in front of Knicks fans who still lose sleep over him being drafted the pick before and then Jordan Hill being taken the pick after that. So I am sure Knicks fans were just so delighted, as well as the ticket prices went from $130 for a nosebleed seat for a Warriors game, pretty average for them on the road, to $470 for the worst seat in Madison Square Garden. So anywho,
Surprised it was that low, to be honest. But
yeah, honestly, it should have been more. But yeah. All right, what do we think about the COVID issues? Let's transition over that.
Oh man, so we're just back to this stuff again, I guess. Everyone has COVID in the NBA. It seems like,
or is associated with somebody that did. It's like,
yeah. 3 games today were canceled. 3 today. There's a reason, just to clarify for fans why, although we mentioned it in earlier podcasts, earlier in the year, we said we would preview the Christmas Day games. We're not previewing the Christmas Day games because we don't know if these games are going to be played. We don't know if a game will be moved to Christmas. There's no telling who's going to be there and whether the game will be played or not, really on even any given night right now. The NBA is kind of in a little bit of chaos. So the question I wanted to ask you, should the NBA consider pausing the season?
I'm going to go with no. And the reason I'm going to go with no is unless there's some Antonio Brown type situations with Vax cards, if you know, you know. They did not do it when we had with more vulnerability or less, shall I say, defense against COVID, and they were able to pull it off. So now, granted, this is the NBA we're talking about, not the NFL. The NFL obviously would do no shutdown whatsoever. They would make sure that they would do 11 on 11, and that was absolutely it. The NFL would find a way to keep playing. The NBA obviously being a little bit more careful, I think should consider it. I do not personally think they should do it. That's not being a selfish fan. I just think there's a way to get around this. They've gotten through this last year. It was the similar time. Funny how we think alike sometimes. One of my notes here, or one of my, quotations I wanted to make sure I mentioned was, boy, Josh, does this feel like a familiar conversation? Because if I remember correctly, around the same time, obviously with the shortened season last year, we had this conversation already. And here we are again. So, and also in the grand scheme of things, with vaccination being so high, I don't think it's still a lot yet. And I have a quote to back that up. According to Baxter Holmes of ESPN, before last Tuesday, this was as of 1:50 today. Before last Tuesday, the single day high for NBA players entering health and safety protocols was 5 in one day. That's it. Not a lot, right? But there have now been double-digit additions for 4 straight days and 5 of the last 6. And as of this tweet/report, which was, like I said, at 1:40 today, this afternoon, on Sunday the 19th, 64 players and 2 coaches, Alvin Gentry and Frank Vogel, have entered protocol in the last 6 days. So if you break that down, it's not a lot over a week span, but they have to be careful because it can continue to increase and grow. My question for you is like a question with a question: is should the NBA do daily testing? That's where they are.
So one thing I do want to point out on that stat, put in perspective for how much that is actually, if we're looking at a number that's around 60 in the past few days of entered health and safety protocols.
It's 10 a day on average is what I got.
Yeah.
10 a day.
But like you said, the stat was total like 64 over the past
6 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The average roster in the NBA has about 12 players. Like that's the active roster.
Yeah.
Across 30 teams, that's 360 players. 60 means 1 in every 6 players. 1 out of every 6 players has entered health and safety protocol in 6 days.
So I guess the answer to my question, should the NBA do daily testing?
I mean, the number will, if you're going to do daily testing to like help kind of weed things out, yeah. But you're going to have to pause the season if you do.
So you're on the camp of pause the season.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a little out of control at the moment.
My issue is if you do, for how long, and how are you ensured that it's going to stop it? Yeah, you could say 14 days. But then if you test everybody in 14 days and the number's still, a 13th of the league, I'm just throwing out a percentage as an idea. Like, where do you go from there? Do you go, okay, let's just pause it for longer? You have to set a baseline and that be your baseline. And obviously the NBA, the other thing you mentioned about people moving stuff around and games being added to Christmas, one thing they're not going to do is mess up the marketing for Christmas. Because if they have pretty much healthy teams across the board for Christmas, I actually don't know the Christmas matchups right now because I don't start looking at them until about the day before. But they're always big matchups. They're always ones that people care about at 12, like 12, 3, 6, 8, and like 10:30. I mean, they played 5 of them that are basically back to back to back to back. And they're really good games. So if it happens, it's going to happen after Christmas. That's the other thing is it's when do they do it, right? It's not happening between now and next Friday or this coming Friday. Nope, they're going to play Christmas unless something crazy happens in the next 4 days, 5 days.
It was interesting to make the statement when you said that the team's health outlook looks fine. I'm not confident that I don't believe that 10 teams, that there's nobody on any of those teams that are in health and safety protocol. But
exactly, we've
got today's the 19th. Got 6 days.
Yeah.
It's not going to stay clear.
No.
So just make that completely open. It's not going to stay clear. Those players are going to get ruled out over the next. Several of those players will get ruled out over the next few days. No, the NBA won't pause the season. I don't think they will. I was saying I think they should. The reason that it helps to stop it is you stop flying guys around the country, continuing to interact with different teams every night. You give it a chance to run the 10 to 14 day cycle.
Yeah, let the dust settle a little, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you get back to it because the longer you keep flying the guys around, interacting with people, it'll just keep spreading.
The other reason I don't think it happens is because I don't think they have unless I'm just not thinking of an alternative. Like, I don't think they want to go with what they would call worst case scenario alternative. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right? They're going to run like a business and try to make as much money as possible. You cancel the season. Yeah, you're going to, I guess if you're Adam Silver, you're thinking you're going to preserve the financial future of the next, between now and June, because you want guys fully healthy and the playoffs, et cetera, right? You would rather have a playoff that's possible than a Christmas Day game, right? You would rather lose the revenue there. But my thing is, like, I guess I don't know what another solution is. That's kind of where my hesitation is. It's like, I don't want them to, and I don't think they will. But what other alternative do they have? That's why they went with the daily testing. I don't think there's anything else that they can do before a shutdown. However, this the NBA we're talking about, I just don't think they shut down.
I don't think they'll want to. I don't think they'll have a choice at some point. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things will stop and go the other way. I think they're going to get at a point where so many guys they can keep going, but eventually you're only going to have one game a day as rosters aren't able to play because everybody's in protocol.
Yeah, as of today, I believe it was 4 games that were canceled in total. Like you mentioned, I literally have it right here. Denver, Brooklyn, Cleveland, Atlanta, New Orleans, Philadelphia. Those are today. Orlando, Toronto tomorrow, and then Washington and Brooklyn. So it's not like they could do the NHL approach where they're like, let's just stop Canadian travel. That's what
the NHL thing's different. That's
there's 7 teams, obviously.
Well, that one's probably more likely Canada said no more U.S. to Canadian travel.
Probably.
As they did last year. That's why the NHL had to restructure their league so that all the Canadian teams only played each other for the whole season because they couldn't go in and out until they brought a Canadian team in to do the playoffs at the last 4. But
yeah, I guess the question is that, where we are is that shutdown seems to be the only option other than daily testing. So I think there's just going to be this weird kind of.
Well, it's not a shutdown; it's a pause.
Or pause, not shutdown, but pause. But shut down for 14 days, pause 4 days, whatever. The point being is, I think we're in this weird, like, hold your breath moment between now and Christmas, because really the next break we're going to get, where 90% of the NBA gets off to spend time with their families and get healthy and quarantine and whatnot, is All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, I mean, guys still go to the All-Star break even if they're not in it. They travel with the teams, et cetera. So I think we're at this hold the breath moment. We will obviously keep everyone updated on social media and keep ourselves up to the loop and make sure that we're here in case something happens. Any other thoughts on COVID issues? Any positive bright spots? Anything you got before we go into news or snooze?
You're still anything positive?
I mean, look, the NFL is still playing with less problems than the NBA is, and that really does surprise me. And they have plenty of
because they have rosters of size 56.
Regardless of there's
losing 4 guys on your NFL team, losing 4 on your NBA team are very different.
Right. Yeah, I guess on that scale, of course, but they're going to find, the NBA is going to find a way. I'm fully confident. That's my positive note.
Oh, I don't think they'll shut anything down. They did a bubble to make sure the season was completed last time. But it might be smart to just put a pause, let the players get healthy, stop trotting them around to continue to spread COVID. But with that being said, it's time for news or snooze is back, as Trevor and I will debate whether or not something is news at all. Let me pull up my list of news or snooze topics for today.
While you're doing that, I have the first one in front of me that I have in order of how I wrote them down for the sake of my notes. Are you ready to start the first one? So I don't lose track. Kyrie Irving's return. Take it away. As an avid owner of Kyrie Irving in a basketball league.
Yes.
Take it away.
So Kyrie Irving's return was announced. I want to say, was it on Friday? Yeah, on Friday. And Kyrie Irving entered COVID health and safety protocols on Saturday. So with that being said, I'm going to say snooze. I shouldn't be laughing about someone testing positive for COVID, but Kyrie was back and then he was out again. So snooze. Kyrie hasn't kind of come back. To kind of clarify for listeners, the Nets have changed their policy and they're going to let Kyrie Irving play road games. Interesting that they made this decision after Kevin Durant was ruled out for 10 days in healthy safety protocols that they were going to allow Kyrie Irving to now play road games outside of New York. And so I guess that's their plan now once Kyrie gets healthy and gets the negative test and gets out of health and safety protocol. But do I think having Kyrie there half the time and still not being able to practice in New York with the team is going to cause a major difference for the Nets? Probably not. It's a weird scenario.
So I'm shocked we agreed on this. I did go with Snooze as well. I mean, kind of shocked. I'll just ask my question first. Why come back so randomly? Why, the Nets are changing their thing, and that's why he's coming back. But, does he truly want to be back?
He always wanted to play basketball. He just wasn't going to get vaccinated. If they had if New York didn't have the law, he would have been playing all year.
Yeah, well, so it is interesting. You mentioned the KD timing of it. The Nets are starting to get right as KD is having an MVP season prior to this out for him with COVID. The issue with the COVID health and safety thing is not only is some of these guys, a lot of these guys aren't positive. A lot of these guys are part of protocol. What they mean by protocol is the association with another player that had it. So the Kyrie thing is interesting because we never actually officially got whether it was a positive test or not when it comes to him. But yeah, you're correct. The next day, obviously, is something that I did not see coming. I did not see him immediately going right into protocol and to be on the brighter note. But the part for me and why it was Snooze is I'm just not that excited about a guy who's going to play 50% and not be able to practice with his team except for on the road. Yeah, he's going to make a difference, but let's assume that this stays through the playoffs because as of right now, obviously he's not getting vaccinated. So we're going to assume that for the playoffs, he plays in a 7-game series, depending on their matchup. Let's just say they're the number 1 seed because that's what they are now, the Nets, and we'll talk about them a little more later, or the East a little bit more later. But let's just say that they get the number 1 seed. So you're telling me that he gets to play 3 games out of a 7-game series? I'm just not that excited for it. He also has to test negative for 5 straight days until he can return. He can't start his return, like we mentioned, without 5 straight days of negative testing. So technically he's not even back. He's just trying to get back. And of course, entered protocol. So that's also why I said Snooze. It's a double-edged sword for me. Is I'm not that excited about Kyrie. I'm not a fan of him. Obviously, the situation behind it doesn't make it any easier for me to get behind him. Plus the fact that it's going to take him God knows how long now. He might not be back until, first, second week of January because of the 10-day, 14-day timeline. So, and then 5 days of testing after that. So it's just too much. There's just too much to care about. Obviously, if you're drafting him, like we mentioned the drafting thing for fantasy basketball a couple months ago, if you're drafting him, you knew the risk. You also, though, know that if he does come back, he plays away games, you have him at least half your season. So, sure. I'm looking forward to Nets fans being so excited about 50% of Kyrie Irving.
But yeah, we can talk more about Kyrie when he plays in a game. So Moving on, Zion Williamson suffered a big setback in the past couple weeks, and it kind of looks like Zion may not play at all this year for the Pelicans. Is Zion not playing this season news or snooze?
So I think we're going to agree again, but I'm also going to tell you why I do have news. It's news to me that no matter the scenario, let me just be completely upfront. No matter what we discuss here in the next few moments when it comes to Zion Williamson, all of it's news for two reasons. One, it's Zion Williamson. And two, I'm going to go through some scenarios with you after we talk for a moment that I went through in my head and basically went, how does this play out, both this season and next? Yes, we don't know any of this stuff, but this is all hypothetical. But my point being is every scenario ends in a situation where it's news. That's where I came from when it came to news or snooze on this, because no matter what happens, this situation is news.
I can't tell if you're saying news or if you're saying snooze.
Sorry.
Yeah. You kept saying it's news, and I can't tell if that S is going on the end or not.
Yeah, this congestion also doesn't help me. News. It is 100%, no matter the scenario, news.
Okay, with an N. Got it.
With an N. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. So I've said, now I'm a big fan of Zion. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I think he's got enough talent to be the MVP in the NBA. I also
Absolutely.
said that with the game he plays when he came in at 285 pounds, like he was at Duke, that his knees and his ankles were not going to sustain that for a long time. Same reason LeBron didn't stay at 260 for that long, because eventually it's just going to wear down those joints. And we're kind of seeing that at an accelerated pace with Zion. And I think that's a lot. There's a lot to be concerned about from the Pelicans organization.
Great timing on saying that. So here's a couple scenarios why this situation is shaping up to be an all-time disaster. Because you and I last, 3-4 months ago in the offseason, we're talking about how close to implosion they really could be, they being the Pelicans. And
they're currently they have equal odds for the number one pick with the Pistons, Magic, and Rockets right now.
Correct.
Where the Pelicans are. They're in that bottom four.
So I'm going to go through 5 scenarios with you, and I'm going to ask you which one is more likely in your opinion, and we can dissect it. These are in no particular order. I'm just giving you all 5. Zion's injury continues, and he starts to look like a bust for injuries' sake, like a Greg Oden style injury. Number 2, his injury heals, but the rumors of his health/shape are true, and he looks very concerning coming back from injury at, let's just say back to game shape weight, which would be slightly north of 280. Let's say he was drafted at 285. Let's say he comes back to 95. Obviously, it could be more than that. My point being is I think it is more than that. 3, he comes back and he can't be enough to get the Pelicans into the play-in and playoffs. And then they're kind of back in this weird middle ground. What do we do again? We missed the play-in, et cetera. 4, he comes back and has nothing wrong and he looks great. He's back in shape within a couple of weeks and the Pelicans stink and they don't make the play-in in this same scenario again. And he asks for a trade this coming off season due to turmoil and such. He would have to play himself into looking good is my point there. That one's kind of far-fetched. And then lastly, what I said was the most unlikely scenario. He comes back and this decent core, which by the way, if you have watched Pelicans games, they're looking kind of good. Like there's a couple pieces I like, a couple pieces that we were shocked by. Herb Jones, you know who you are. And this decent core next year looks well and they make the playoffs next year.
Well, they ain't making the playoffs next year.
Okay. So that one's out. You have 4 scenarios to pick from. I can go back over them if you want.
So
where are
my
we
thing
with this?
is, I think that those middle 3 of those are really kind of one scenario because I can see all of those things happening.
No matter what.
Same
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
I do think Zion will play basketball again. I don't think he goes completely Greg Oden because Oden's issues weren't. Oden was just incredibly unlucky. And I don't think Zion goes that route. I think he comes back. I don't think we know what game shape he's in. I don't think they reveal it. I think it goes kind of the questions will be pervasive. The Pelicans won't get better, even though Zion will look good in whatever amount he plays, probably on a minutes restriction, whatever that means, 25 minutes per game. And eventually, either the Pelicans, the players initiate the Pelicans blowing it up, or the front office decides it's time to blow it up. But the Pelicans, as they currently stand, aren't going to get anywhere. So they're not going anywhere.
So to answer the question, is that in Pelicans implosion in the next 16 months?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I think we're in the same camp there. We're in the same camp, but we're
seeing it happen like now. I mean, they call their GM Jerry Krause in text messages to each other.
100%. The thing is that
that's not good.
The roster's not that the roster's bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but there's some good pieces there, right? Nikhil Alexander-Walker, you have Herb Jones, you have Brandon Ingram. I get it. I'm just saying. You
can't trust the direction of the front office that decided the good offseason decision was to not match the offer for Lonzo Ball, instead go Devontae Graham instead. Just some of the decisions that they're making in New Orleans don't make any sense.
So, and that's That's where I'm having trouble, because the implosion is going to have to come from somebody who makes decisions. In this case, say the owner is going to have to completely, because like the David Griffin thing, like it's a problem. So at this point, like you have to redo everything. You just got a new head coach. There's just too many things that are going wrong, which is why I asked all the scenarios, because all of them are completely entirely possible. The part where we're in the same camp, where I think we're a little off, is I'm not there yet with the Greg Oden thing. I'm using the Greg Oden as the guy that was supposed to be really good and didn't because of injuries thing. I'm not calling Zion a bust. That's not what I'm doing, to be completely clear. What I'm calling it is he's now missed, as of this week, the same amount of games he's played in his NBA career. 87.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is concerning. I believe Greg Oden played only 40% of his first 4 seasons. So that kind of gives you an idea in terms of the comparison. I think we're in the same camp when it comes to, I think he comes back. But I think you're right. 2, 3, and 4 could kind of all go any different way. They're kind of the same base of the same problem. Right this moment, I'm very nervous about the trajectory of his career. I do think he's trending towards being a bust. That's why I brought these scenarios up, because I think there's this big swing where like we see him in game shape and that may change everything. Problem is we don't know anything about him beyond the fact that he's set back and probably won't play again until next year. You're correct on that. I completely agree. They have no reason to. The roster's young core is like, they're too young to be trying to make a play-in run this year. Secure a better pick. Like, just knock it down. You have all these picks coming in the next couple of years, which is another reason we can talk about this next offseason. Another reason why I think they implode even more is because they have a lot of picks coming in with the Lakers.
It's a crazy situation, because we're talking about a guy who is a talent high enough where if you were to demand a trade, or the Pelicans put him on the trade block, 29 teams in the NBA should be willing to sell the farm, basically, to bring him into their team.
I disagree with you. I just
talent-wise,
not talent-wise. Oh yeah.
So we're talking about a guy who, because he wasn't, until his shoe blew out in college, he didn't ever have an injury problem when he rolled the ankle when his shoe blew out. And we're talking, it would be the craziest situation, because the question's gonna come up at this point as to being traded, but there's so many question marks. And as far as the Pelicans as an organization go, they blew it up 3 years ago. So why are they in a position where they have to do this again?
Because of the health. That's why I'm leaning towards the bust. The health thing is concerning me. Like, I'm not saying he's a bust.
Zion's injury is a problem for New Orleans.
Correct.
It is not the problem for New Orleans.
Absolutely. No.
Healthy Zion averaging 25 and 12, the Pelicans would still not be close to a playoff spot.
So I'm just answering your, like, why are they 3 years? Like, why are 3 years later? Part of it is because you get a guy with this first overall pick that is a guy that you are trying to replace the Anthony Davises of the world with, and you go, well, he's not working out because he's not healthy. Like, Anthony Davis was a great pick for them come 2012 because he played there for 7 years without really any consistent injury history. He had injuries. Obviously, he missed about half of the season a couple of times. Point being, though, is he played a consistent amount for the long of the 7 years. Zion hasn't done that in now a total of whatever 87 times 2 is. I'm too tired to do that math. It's just an interesting situation because it scares me. My other part where I'm like, okay, now we don't know what teams look like in 12 months. And my point being here is I'm not sure right this moment, talent-wise, yes. I'm not sure right this moment, or even in 12 months, there's many teams that are willing to take the chance. The Kings of the world, et cetera, like ones that are willing to move for like Ben Simmons, et cetera. My point being is there's just not many teams where I'm like, they're a team because of what we know with the health of Zion, because of the situation, because not a playoff contender is not going to trade for him. My point being is another bottom feeder franchise. There's just not enough right now where I'm like, Sacramento, right? Minnesota is starting to look better. Like teams, there's just not enough bottom feeders that are going to just be like, I'm done. Zion's worth the risk from the talent standpoint, and we won't have to pay $1 million for him. I'm just not sure there's a market there just yet. And I think we're going to I think what scenario plays out is how the health looks for the next, if he comes back this year, great. If not, then it'll have to be, we'll have this conversation again between trade deadline and next year. I think it'll matter between now and February of next year, or season start to February.
Yeah, I think we disagree a lot on that. I think if the Pelicans were willing to trade Zion Williamson, it's the Zion sweepstakes is wide open. People, that is a risk you take. Now, obviously, I mean, the trade value because of the risk isn't as high. The issue comes down to where the Pelicans are pricing it. If they're going to go the Daryl Morey way of ask for an egregious amount so that no trade happens, well, obviously nothing's going to happen. But every team should be considering that risk, because if you're right, you have one of the top 5 best players in the NBA. People trade more for draft picks in the lottery. They don't even know who's going to be there. We're talking about a guy who, if he can get back on the court, can be one of the NBA's top 5 players. That's a risk I think a lot of teams would be willing to take. This isn't a Ben Simmons situation where the guy can't shoot the ball at all, can't score, can barely pass, and doesn't want to play basketball, frankly. It's a whole different situation.
So, and I'm fine with disagreeing on that, because at the end of the day, like, his value is going to change based on the month, based on the situation, based on where we are when it comes to the Pelicans value asking. I'm just not sure if I'm a team, say I use the Sacramento example, who have been bottom feeders forever, but I'm not sure if I'm Sacramento, yes, it's worth it because the value's diminished, or at the time, if it is diminished.
What does Sacramento have to lose?
That's
the question I have to ask. What do the Sacramento Kings have to lose? Oh no, a few more years of wasting De'Aaron Fox shooting 33% and scoring 15 points per game.
Regardless,
Sacramento has to lose.
Okay, they're a bad example. They're the first bottom feeder team that came to my brain. I'm sorry. My point being is, I just don't know, unless you've got the time and the history to risk it. I wouldn't do it, because the next 12 months of health are going to be what changes the trajectory of how he gets moved, if he does. So I think if the Pelicans want to see anything change, whether it be Oak implosion, whether it be let's trade Brandon Ingram and try to build a different team around but Zion if he is healthy, whatever the scenario is, it's not just a move Zion thing. I think there's a hesitation around it due to the health of it being so uncertain. Yes, there's teams that will take a chance. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I don't think I would, because of what I've seen so far in the first 4 years.
All right, what's next on the News or Snooze docket?
Trevor,
tell me who the third place team in the Eastern Conference is.
As of recording tonight, that's the tagline you gave me, are the Cavs the best team in the Eastern Conference? But they're third, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And of course, the listeners, I know this isn't visual, but I had to whip out. I have a Cavs Nike Dry Fit tee. They have the new logo since they changed the land stuff in 2014-15. But yeah, I just whipped that out, and looks great, feels great, it's comfortable. Shout out to the Cavs, who are third in the Eastern Conference. So I guess I'm going to ask you the question you asked me in our text exchange to make sure we were on the same page about this episode. Are they the best team in the Eastern Conference?
So far this season, I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers have been the best team in the Eastern Conference.
I knew you were going to do this.
The Cleveland Cavaliers are currently leading the Eastern Conference in defense. They have allowed the lowest amount of points scored per game, have the highest plus minus. They're 8-2 right now, and frankly, it's just that kind of their young guys have advanced rather quickly. They're doing perfectly fine without Sexton. They have Jared Allen, who's been just an absolute monster. Darius Garland has improved by leaps and bounds. Mobley looks like a beast, and playing with Allen is no problem, really. Lauri Markkanen has been a solid hand that people don't I think a lot of people forget that they even added Lauri Markkanen. in the past offseason. And Ricky Rubio has been an incredible veteran point guard presence. The Cavs look really good. I'm not saying the Cavs are going to win the Eastern Conference. What I'm saying, though, is so far this year, if I were to say who has been the most impressive Eastern Conference team, I think it's been the Cleveland Cavaliers.
So, two different answers here. One being, this is news or snooze. So I guess in your case, you think it's news.
Yep.
I'm going to say it's snooze because I don't think it's sustainable. Now, do I agree with you right now? I think they're the best team. Again, for that question, I think the answer to me is no, but I do think they're really fun. I agree with you on all the points you made about all the players. I think they're a really fun team.
I just want to point this out. Neither of us thought the Cavaliers would be in the playoff conversation.
Oh, no, I understand that.
And they are in third place. Like a week, 6 days before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
How is that not news?
It's okay. So I guess if you're asking me right now, sure, it's news.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to be news? No. I think we look back on this segment and laugh in 3 months. So
laugh at you.
Maybe. But here's the part that's, yeah, okay, we might. But here's the point. Do you realize who the 8 through 13 teams are in the East? Sure. Let me read them to you. In order from 8 to 13, they are the Celtics, the Sixers, the Raptors, the Hawks, the Knicks, and the Pacers. Every one of those teams, except for the Pacers, is in except for the, hold on. I haven't even finished my statement.
You put them in there and you're like, except for the Pacers.
Hold on. You don't even know what I'm about to say. Every one of those teams is trying to make the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. Pacers are avidly trying to plug. They will probably be completely imploded by trade deadline. They will be the magic of this trade deadline. I will go ahead and put it on record and say that. My point being is everybody, they're 13th. The reason I didn't include, since you laughed at me or with me or at me, I don't know how you did it, but the 14 and 15 teams, they're not like the Magic and the Pistons are not making the playoffs. It's not happening. For some reason, though, the Pacers still have a shouts chance. They really do. As scary as that is. What do you mean?
The Magic are only 9 games out of 10th place.
I hate when you do this. So congrats to the Cavs for winning the pre-Christmas Good Team Award. But because of the teams behind them, I think most of them, if not all of them, get right here in the next couple of months. But if you're asking me, though, like one of those we've got 4 teams here that next week we're going to have to consider for panic button. I think it's been a month since I had panic button. I don't even know. But it's the fact that the Celtics, Sixers, Raptors, Hawks, Knicks, and we've already hit the panic button on one of those teams. We hit the panic button on the Hawks. And here they are.
They're in 11th.
Yeah. So they're also battling COVID at this moment. I believe that half of their roster is they're part of the cancellations. So,
well, I mean, just now they're battling COVID. That doesn't excuse.
Yeah, no, it doesn't excuse
the past 30 games.
It doesn't. No. The other thing you brought up a great point that I'm glad we are going to address. I think the Sexton stuff was legit. I think Sexton could be the problem, that I was all for the fact that I don't think he's the problem. I think Sexton might have been one of the problems.
I think he was the problem.
I think he was. I think we're to the point where this is kind of eye-opening. I'm not calling it Ewing theory. If you've ever heard of the Ewing theory, Patrick Ewing, obviously the year that the 99 season they made the playoff, or they made the finals without him. There's this long-running theory that a lot of these big sportscasters, they call it the Ewing theory, where it's basically, long story short, a guy leaves, teams start doing well. There's a lot of them this year in all sports, funny enough. But specifically in this case, I think Sexton is a great Ewing theory potential. He goes out for the season with that. I don't even know what it was at this point. I think it was a meniscus issue. He's in my reserves, or injured reserve on my fantasy team. But I'll be looking to move him here shortly. But yeah, I think he's a problem, and I don't understand where his value is anymore. And this isn't a context and trade segment. It's just a confused NBA podcaster, like going, what do we do now for the Cavs? You just keep playing well, I guess, right? I mean,
Keep winning. I mean, like you
winning,
look like the best team in the Eastern Conference. Run with it. You got a great team.
I don't know. The Sexton thing, I think there's more to it. And I think this is far from the end of that situation. I think he's not.
They're going to try to trade him.
I just don't think he plays another game as a Cavalier.
Nope.
I think healthy or not, by the time the next season rolls around, he'll be fully healthy for season start. So the problem
I think he's a free agent at the end of the year.
Oh, that's right. He was an expiring. That's part of the reason they were going to move him. That's right.
His contract's expiring, and
so
the Cavs just may not make an offer. So, forget trading. Just let him walk.
The other thing that makes me nervous is he plays a very Derrick Rose style, and he has a meniscus injury. It's too paralleled, and it makes me nervous. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting things going on there. Shout out to Evan Mobley, who obviously was the Kate Cunningham Mobley thing, the Jalen Green thing. Like there's so many things circulating there. Those three, who's the best, who's not. Mobley's looking like a very, very good player. I'm not going to call him generational talent just yet, but if he's healthy, of a guy of his build, he's going to be unstoppable. He's going to be just this unstoppable big. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Cavs have a two-headed monster in Allen and Mobley. Who I'm going to take a second to point out that I'm right. In our fantasy basketball podcast league, I had to beg you for rounds after round after round to draft Jared Allen, and you didn't think he was good. And he's one of the best players on our team. I'm just going to throw that and point that out there.
He's sixth as the center position. Absolutely. I agree with you now. Funny enough, I turned around in a 20-person team that we're a part of with some of the Hoop Space guys on Twitter. Shout out to Chris and them. But we're not doing too hot in that league because it's a literal, it is set up like the NBA where you have a designated 108 something million salary cap. And it's very difficult.
I don't check that. Yeah, that's all you.
I have been keeping up with it for us, but my point being is it's
I've
very
never
difficult.
once opened that.
We at one point were first in that league for 3 weeks. And we have Lonzo Ball, Jared Allen, a couple of other guys who have outperformed their fantasy expectation. So Jared Allen was a pick I took in that one because of your talking to. So don't say entirely that I didn't want him. I am happy that we did, and it convinced me to take him in other formats. So look, Jared Allen has been awesome. And he's kind of this exception to the role of the NBA we're in. And I'm glad to see him play well because he's actually second right now in the NBA in field goal percentage. So he's very, very back to the basket, do his thing, block shots, rebound, very, very good guy that the Hornets could have used this year. So that's it on the Cavs. Shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers for, by the way, we are about a month away from that really annoying, we don't have anything to talk about. We not being you and I, we being the NBA world, where we're about a month or so away from maybe this beginning, maybe a couple more months than that, where some anonymous source comes out where it's like LeBron really does like that Eastern Conference Cavs team. He really likes that young core and how well they've developed. And LeBron really likes them. And the Lakers aren't doing too hot. And we're way too close to that. And that's the other reason I'm like, I hope we look back on this and the Cavs aren't doing as well, because it's just going to be
this is year 4 for LeBron in LA. Isn't it?
It is.
Is his contract up after this season?
It is. Yes. So there's a reason that I'm like, we are way too close to this narrative.
When does Bronny enter the NBA? He's a junior in high school now, right? So he's got to be.
He is part of that. He will be the first draft class that if the NBA fully changes the rule,
if they change it,
he will.
That's
be part
not a guarantee.
Change. Yeah, that's why I said if he'll be part.
I think you're safe about LeBron staying in LA for a couple more years. I think he'll stay in I think you're safe that he'll stay in LA for next year.
Oh yeah, my point being is the narrative thing of it's gonna come up. It's gonna be, oh man, LeBron really likes that Eastern Conference Cavs team. That young core looks really good. He's really a fan. Like it's gonna.
I'm gonna point out you got a max of 2 more years with LeBron.
100%.
Because whoever picks Bronny, that's where he's going. Frankly, end of story.
It's 100% lining up that way too. He'll sign.
Whoever picks Bronny, that's where LeBron's going.
He'll sign a 1-and-1.
Free agency goes after the draft too. So.
Exactly.
Bronny still has to play his senior year in high school, so LeBron will stay in LA because he wants to be close to him for that. He's not going to move him to a different high school. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, so he ultimately, what I think happens is if the NBA doesn't change the rule, is he does the senior year thing. He elects to play the G League as long as he's 17, I believe. He's going to do that part of it. Anyway, regardless, I don't want to talk about that right now because there's just a lot to that hasn't happened yet. And
there's a rabbit hole I could go down with that, but we won't do it.
But we won't. We're in that. My point is there's a narrative that always happens with this. Like he has this narrative thing that happens, and it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when.
LeBron will return to Cleveland at some point. I think it's going to be when he buys the team
or leadership of
some kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think he's going to buy it.
Yeah,
like LeBron James buying the Cleveland Cavaliers is just where this goes. At some point,
it's like Jordan buying the Hornets. It has this weird chasing his ghost thing. All right, I'm sick of the NBA for the last 48 minutes. I am ready to talk about College Hoops Corner. Great coin term segment on Josh's part. I'm still happy to say that that's a really awesome name. So, and it is here to stay. So a couple things while I gather myself and find my notes here. We obviously, this is the one where we're going to have to cram a little just because there's so much that happened. It's really just going to be a pick and choose kind of, it's always been this cool segment where we just kind of throw things at the wall and talk about them because college basketball is fun and it's December and we still really don't know anything about a lot of these teams. We thought Gonzaga was going to be the, unanimous best team in the West Coast Conference, and Santa Clara is trying to make that interesting. So I don't know where we are when it comes to college. There's a lot of things that happen, but for Josh and I's sake, we have a handful of a couple here. We're going to start with the one that was kind of obvious when it happened. Unfortunately, it's been almost 2 weeks since it happened. But Josh, Rutgers, who now is 5-5 as of recording this, beat Purdue. And then the next night, I don't know why I'm bringing this up. State almost beat Purdue on a neutral court in New York. They went to overtime, and Purdue ultimately ended up winning it by 8. Purdue almost – it was a very close game. Purdue almost lost back-to-back nights to Rutgers and NC State.
And if that tells you anything, no college team is ever a finished product in December.
Absolutely. So I guess first thoughts on Purdue as somebody who – now, look, they're still a great team, obviously, but you're very high on Purdue. But just first thoughts on where they are, where we are with them when it comes to the rankings. Obviously, they're no longer number one.
My thoughts really come down to I still think Purdue's really good. I think they still are more likely than not to end up being one of the 1 seeds in the tournament when it's all said and done in March. I think they played a tough road game. I hate it when teams have to start conference play in early December. I think it's weird.
It is.
And they went on the road. There was a hot crowd in Rutgers because they were hosting the number 1 team. And Rutgers won on a miracle shot, frankly.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah, good for Rutgers, but.
Can I give myself a pat on the back?
Because.
The Jaden Ivey thing.
Yep.
I got to do it. I can't. We've written this long. I gave you the credit for getting the Purdue thing right. And when they were 7th coming into the season, you're like, I think they're a little low. You're like, 7th seems weird to say they're a little low. And I was like, are you sure about that? You're like, yeah, Purdue's better. And look, congrats on that. But I was on the train that they're, Jaden Ivey is going to be, and now he's in the top 5-10 pick conversation.
Yeah,
in like a month.
3. Like, he's the guy after Holmgren and Bonchera.
Like, this, you made the joke 2 weeks ago because it's been 2 weeks since we recorded. You made the joke. You were like, I'm done predicting college basketball until March because I've gotten nothing right. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I look back at my track record this year so far, and I felt pretty good about some stuff. I'm gonna give myself a small pat on the back with Jaden Ivey. I do like him a lot. I think he's a great prospect nonetheless. Also, Xavier is 11-1 as we're recording this. Nothing else on Purdue. This is like a throw stuff at the wall, unless you have something else on Purdue. The Big Ten right now. Funny you mentioned there would be a number 1 seed. Purdue will probably be a top 2 seed, yes, as well as the Big Ten will have. Right now, bracketology has them with 10 teams in the tournament.
Yes,
so sounds about right. Xavier right now is 1-0 in the Big East. They're ranked 22nd. I think if they take down Villanova, they officially will be the best Big East team this year. I think if they can knock out Villanova, And I think right now they are the best team in the Big East. I just think they're too talented in the backcourt, like I mentioned earlier this year. Villanova's lost 2 games in a row now to a couple tough opponents. They've also lost to UCLA and others. So Villanova's played a really difficult schedule. They're still 9th. There was a couple things that really stuck out to me in the last 2 weeks that we kind of just want to hodgepodge, throw at the wall, whatever. Not sure if you realize how many close games there were in the last 2 weeks from both sides of the ball, like teams that should have lost but didn't and did, but then they won. And there's a lot of things that happened. Then there's one other thing that correlates to that. Just a couple. Gonzaga barely beats Texas Tech, who, by the way, Texas Tech upset Tennessee live last week or 2 weeks ago for us when we were talking about college. Tennessee, I said, was the best SEC team. And, well, I guess Alabama is now. Who, by the way, this weird carousel of college basketball and why December is so confusing is Gonzaga barely beats Texas Tech, who beat Tennessee, but Gonzaga lost to Alabama, who almost lost to Jacksonville State. Are you following me? There's too many confusing triangles here. Alabama almost loses to Jacksonville State, but they obviously, like I mentioned, beat Gonzaga. Memphis then beats Alabama in Memphis, for what it's worth, by 14. Like handedly, Memphis takes care of them. That Memphis-Tennessee game, I'll get to in a moment, got canceled. But Kansas survives Stephen F. Austin by 8. Auburn survives St. Louis, who is unranked and 500 record, by 4. Providence right now, by the way, put Providence in the top 25. Providence is really, really good this year. Providence beats UConn by 3. Arkansas loses to Hofstra. USC survives UC Irvine. USC looks like the best team west of Colorado right now. And I don't think that's even, or one of the best teams, not Gonzaga. Sorry, not the best team, but one of the best teams that's not Gonzaga.
Yeah, I was about to UCLA.
UCLA and Gonzaga are kind of the given still. But USC looks really good, balanced. I'll get to that in a moment. Nova lost to Baylor and Creighton back-to-back, like I mentioned. Nova's not looking good as expected. And then Bama barely beat Houston, who, by the way, looks really good again. Houston's been taking care of business about anybody. So I know that was a lot, but that's just in the last less than 2 weeks. That was in 12 days. That was all. I went through all notable matchups for the last 12 days of games that went weirdly in weird directions. And I know this is college basketball in December, but some of those are kind of eye-opening. But Villanova being the first one and Alabama being the roller coaster ride that they are. Any thoughts of any of those teams? Any thoughts that you got taken away in the last 2 weeks?
Nope.
You're just like, college basketball sucks in December and I'm ready for it to be March already.
It doesn't suck. I mean, it's just you're going to get a lot of crazy results in December. You get crazy results in March. Ohio State's season ends at the hand of Oral Roberts. You don't know what you're going to get sometimes.
Yeah, clearly.
We know Baylor's still good. Baylor's number 1, I believe, undefeated, defending national champions.
They are, which is not where I thought we would be. So the other 2 things, with it being such a toss-up, also the games canceled with COVID this week in the last 2 weeks. Iona versus Seton Hall. There's a couple great matchups. Honestly, we're kind of robbed of some of these.
Iona Tennessee, that beat Alabama.
Rick Pitino, Iona. Seton Hall is a very good team as well, who's beaten a couple of good teams as well. Tennessee versus Memphis, Colorado State and Tulsa. Colorado State being undefeated and just outside the top 25. They'll be kind of that weird team that is probably going to be no higher than a 10 seed, but they might beat somebody in March. Alabama State, UCLA, and then Washington, Gonzaga are all games that were canceled due to COVID in the last 2 weeks.
Along with Kentucky, Ohio State, and UCLA, UNC.
That's right. I forget. See, and I knew I was going to miss something, and there you go. There's even more big ones that got canceled. So the last one is I want to look. The reason I'm bringing this up is very quickly. I want to look back at this conversation because, college basketball is what it is in December, but I want to look back at this conversation when we do our March Madness recap, not preview, but recap, because we'll know who the national title favorite or winner is. But a couple things that I think are interesting. Since 2002, every national championship was top 40 in offensive efficiency and top 20 in defensive efficiency. And as of right now, I have a thing that shows what teams are where. So I want to just put a few of them out there and then bookmark this for the end of or middle of April, right? I mentioned USC already. USC is the best in terms of net positive, in terms of the balance of the two offensive and defensive efficiencies. Baylor and Iowa State. Obviously, both of those teams are playing very, very well right now. Houston, Auburn, Wake Forest. There's always a couple weird ones in here. Don't get me wrong. There always is. Santa Clara. Yep, the team that I brought up playing Gonzaga in their conference. Alabama, Kansas, Minnesota, Colorado State. Gonzaga is a little bit off on the defensive efficiency so far. UNC, Creighton, Indiana, Clemson, and that's about it. That's any close to relevancy. A couple of the teams that are in the opposite end of this: Tennessee, Boise State, Virginia Tech, Oregon, NC State. That one hurts. Georgia Tech, Arizona State, Florida State, and Texas Tech. So really not a lot of national title contenders of this end, which is why I brought this up. There's just a ton on this end that are right now.
I don't understand the this end thing you're saying.
So in terms of inside and outside the top 40 in offensive efficiency and top 20 in defensive efficiency.
Okay.
There's really nothing to talk about here. It's just, this is something I want to show now in December, what teams that we think right now, and because of top ranking, they are top 25. Most of these teams are top 25 ranked, and where we are when it comes to how efficient they are. Duke is just outside the top 40 and top 20 efficiency number total. So as just a off the wall one that should be there probably. But yeah, Baylor, Iowa State, Houston, Auburn, USC, Kansas, Gonzaga are all right now above in both of those categories. So just an interesting note that a lot of these teams now that we think are very good may very well be title contenders because of that and sustain that, which is why I brought it up, is the sustainability of December to March to then making a title run. So Josh,
bring that stat back to me when we get to the first week of February.
Okay.
Once these teams have had a month of conference play.
I think
because then we will balance out the offensive and defensive efficiency a little bit, because you'll have schedules will look more even. Because right now you got some teams who are trotting around playing the best teams in the country, and some are just playing mid-major schedules. So it's kind of a complicated spot to be looking at that. But once the teams have racked up a good 10 or so conference games, it will start to balance a little bit.
Yeah, it's good to at least make the note of like some of those, and obviously we can't pick apart every one of them right now because we don't have time, but some of those are eye-opening and some of them are not. Some of them are very like, yeah, we definitely know X, Y, and Z team. Like I think we know Gonzaga, Kansas, Alabama. Those are going to be people fighting to make the final or the Elite Eight of the Final Four. But there's some more like interesting. So anyway, I believe people are here and ready for trivia.
Let's give you my points.
Where are we? I don't even know. I don't think either of us know where we are points wise. I think you're still up one. Is that correct?
3-2.
Okay.
No one has scored in weeks. Well over a month since someone has scored.
Well, I'm confident you will probably score at least once.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, I hope.
That's gonna make me look dumb.
No. I think you'll be good. So. I did have to change the scoring format because unfortunately I forgot that it was the 3-3 thing where you gave me 3, so I'm going to give you 3. So on a long Two Pointers podcast episode, I'm going to try to make sure that I think we won't take forever on this. I think it's one of those things you'll either tap out quick or you'll get a bunch. I think there's a very big swing here. I think it's a good question. I'm very happy with this one. So we talked about at the very top, we're going to reverse things an hour here. We talked about Steph Curry. And no, we're not doing the 3-point list again. So go ahead and take a deep breath. That is not happening again. Or we're not changing what, wasn't a different type of 3-point list, unfortunately. Darn if you did your homework. But I did tell you, I would always, I don't want to ever stray away from this, at least on my end of things. I will always make it relevant. And for about 30 seconds, I mentioned this. So it's just still relevant to the conversation. I mentioned how Knicks fans are very upset about where Steph Curry was drafted. So we're going to go over the lottery picks, Josh, of the 2009 NBA draft where Steph was drafted. And I'm going to go ahead and give you a freebie here. So you've got to get 5 correct to get 1 point out of the lottery. You've got to get 8. So I had to change the format because I originally was just going to do, by the way, for you and everybody. I was going to do a format where if you got 7, you got a point, and if you got 14, you got another point. I was going to make it very like big swing here. So 5, you get a point. You get 8, which I think is definitely obtainable. You get a point. And then if you get all 14, you get 3. So there is 3 opportunities here, but there's a big gap there because there's no other way I could score this. So you get 18 total guesses, to be fair. So
This should be fun.
Any questions before we begin?
No questions.
I will tell you.
2009. Okay.
I will tell you the placements. These, and this is from Basketball Reference. There's no Wikipedia
Lottery picks. Yeah.
The lottery of this year.
Yes. Of 2009.
Correct. Begin, my friend. Steph is 7 for what it's worth. I already said that.
So that doesn't count as 1 then.
No, that's why I said 5, because you got to get 4 others on top of Steph.
Okay, I get 4 on top of Steph. All right.
Yeah. Which I think is a good.
So the first I have to go to is the Charlotte Bobcats because they picked in every lottery, so they were definitely in there.
It does tell me the teams on this. I have the team, the college, and I have a couple stats.
If I remember 2009, the Bobcats picked Gerald Henderson in the lottery in 2009.
For no bonus points, but just for fun, do you remember the pick?
It was after Steph because we would have taken Steph. We were mediocre enough to be
that's
later.
True.
So 11,
right.
12, 11 or 12.
12. Good job.
Okay.
12. Yeah. So that is 1 point. Good job.
Dang. So that was also the draft Tyler Hansbrough went. I wanted to say he was a lottery pick, but I don't know if it was because the Pacers taken him. It would have only had to have been 13 or 14 because I remember the Bobcats passed on him. Because I remember my dad being really upset about that because they picked a Duke player instead of picking Tyler Hansbrough. I'm just going to go ahead and throw Hansbrough out there because I can't miss it.
Your logic was correct, and I'm surprised you got that as quick as you did. I feel like you actually would have. I thought going into this you would forget him. I thought you'd be like, because he didn't do much in the NBA. I thought you'd be like, dang it.
He had an 8-year career.
Well,
8, 9, 10-year career.
He wasn't what we thought he might transition from college over as. My point being, you did get that correct. You got the team he was drafted by, and you got the placement correct. So good job on Tyler Hansbrough.
Wait, what placement was it? 13 or 14?
13. It was 13.
13. Yeah, he was just after.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go back to the top.
This was by the way, I'll go over some notable picks that were after the lottery later, but
I'll throw in Jordan Hill because you mentioned that in this podcast.
Bingo. There you go. Part of the reason I didn't give you any freebies here.
So that gives me to 4. I wouldn't have remembered that otherwise.
Yeah, it gets you to 4 total, but not a point yet. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I got to go back to the top because I've just picked like the back half of this draft.
Yeah, you currently
back half of the lottery.
You currently have named the 7th, 8th, 12th, and 13th picks, which is why I like this question because I think it's a great question.
Okay, I've just got to go number 1 picks in my head to try to pick out who went when.
It's it's a long time ago. That's the only hesitation I have for you going that far.
The number 1 pick in 2009 was Blake Griffin.
That is correct. Blake Griffin.
There we go.
Blake Griffin. Nice. You are 1 away from getting that illustrious 4-2 lead.
No, that's a point. Yeah, no.
Oh,
so you said I had to get 5 and Steph was a freebie, so I had to get 4 more. And I got Hill, Henderson, and Throw, and Blake Griffin.
Sorry, thank you. In my format of scoring I had before, it was throwing me off. I'm so thrown off by that because I really thought you would have to get 7, which by the way was probably a good scoring format because 7 is really attainable. You've got the ones that I think you would have probably gotten minus maybe Tyler Hansbrough and I guess I don't know.
Who picked second that year? Who went after Blake Griffin?
I will wait to give you some hints because you're a lot closer to 8 than I thought you would be.
Yeah. I wonder if this was one of those years where it was a really stupid number 2 pick that didn't pan out.
What is your definition of stupid? I had to really think for a second before I gave you any hint.
Someone that for a number 2 was definitely not worth number
2. This was your first freebie for a while. You are 100% correct. This guy should not have been drafted. If you ask
Shouldn't
me.
Have been drafted.
Knowing what we know now, This guy shouldn't have been drafted at all.
You could be exaggerating, which is what's throwing me off.
Oh, I'm not.
Knowing what we know now, shouldn't
Pretty
be drafted at all.
Without looking, I'm pretty sure he played 3 years in the NBA. I'm gonna look now because it's bothering me. I'm gonna look. I'm gonna click on. I'm a Basketball Reference. Thank God.
Who in the world went?
He played a total of one. He got traded to 1, 2, 3. He played for 4 teams. He played for 5 seasons, but only 2 of them were full seasons. Yeah. So I'm still right. 3 total years that were good-ish. I can't even say they were good. They were bad. I would move on from him and come back.
OJ Mayo?
That's a good guess. That is not correct.
Okay, I was thinking he was the OJ went like 2 or 3. So
that's disrespect. That's disrespectful to OJ. He just got into some bad things he shouldn't have. But OJ Mayo was really good for a while.
Yeah.
I believe this was the same team that drafted OJ Mayo, though, for what it's worth.
I don't remember what team drafted OJ Mayo.
Well, that doesn't help you.
The
rookie of the year was picked in the top 5.
Oh, I think I grabbed something. What did you say?
Yeah, I'm giving you subtle hints here. I should stop doing that. The rookie of the year was picked in the top 5 that year. And it wasn't Blake Griffin, obviously.
Well, yeah, because he got hurt.
Yeah, he was rookie of the year in 2010.
Yeah.
Because I remember that, how notable that was. I'm realizing how many people from the same team that weren't in the lottery were picked to, like, near each other. Like how many, like, I'll go over it later with you when we're not recording, but there's a lot of teammates of people that weren't, like, non-lottery people. This is no hint whatsoever. Like non-lottery picks. There's a lot of good teammates here. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like 3 of the Tar Heels went in that first round because Hansbrough went, then Lawson went, then Ellington went. But Lawson and Ellington both went after Hansbrough, and Green went in the second round. Did David Lee get drafted in the lottery in 2009?
David Lee is not correct. I think you're a little early or a little late on David Lee. I believe he was drafted a little before that. I can look that up while you're thinking, but no, David Lee is not correct. Good guess, though. Well, actually, I'm going to find out if it was a good guess or not in just a second.
So I think I was quite late on the David Lee thing.
David Lee draft.
Yeah, that's just a draft I don't remember super well because Blake went and then it just like fell off the rails, I guess. Well, somebody was rookie of the year.
You were not far on David Lee. He was 2005. He was 30th overall pick by the Knicks. Not too bad.
Kind of far.
Only 4 years from then. You got to think like from 2009. We're quite a bit away from that year. So really wasn't that bad. I'll give you credit for that. For what it's worth, it was definitely the most we at least know what we're talking about from basically 2000 on, because you guessed David Lee. Like people aren't going to think of David Lee in probably the next 5 years.
He was good for a little bit of time.
My point being, it shows what we know about the NBA from that era. We were able to pull David Lee out of that. All right, I'm gonna give you a little help. I think you need.
Okay. I think I've got one.
Okay.
So I can't decide which of.
You have 18 guesses, and you've guessed 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
James Harden.
That is correct. My hint was going to be you have a 20,000 point scorer.
I remembered that Westbrook went 08 and Harden went just after.
Correct.
Is what I got to.
Yes, so you still have plenty of guesses. So good there on Harden. I was going to save this hint for a long time from now, but you had an MVP in the lottery there, and that was going to be a dead giveaway. Yeah.
Harden wasn't the rookie of the year, was he?
Yeah, I'll tell you why not. No, he was not. He had a very poor rookie year for efficiency's sake, and he was obviously not the sixth man he was yet. So his sophomore year he was though. This draft class was very good, but it was very good basically from 1 to 60. Like there was a lot of players that either A, still play today, or B, had an impact for the time they did play, just because it's been almost 12 years, I believe now, 13 years. So there was a couple of good guys, not just in the lottery.
Oh, I almost had the number 2 pick. That's on the edge of my memory. I think I remember who it is now. Oh, but I can't remember his name fully.
And I wasn't exaggerating.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I know who it is based on what you're saying.
He was very bad.
Oh, I can't grab it.
When we get done recording, ask Grayson about what he thinks about this guy.
Was he a Thunder pick?
No, but he did play for the Thunder.
He was
one of the 4 teams he played. Oh, I know, you know it. It's just you're there.
Remember.
It's gonna hurt when I tell you. It's gonna hurt a lot.
He has like this really memorable sounding name. Like his name sounds cool, but he's sucked at basketball in the NBA.
Weird how he has a cool name that you can't remember it.
I can't.
Again, don't let number 2 stump you. We have plenty of guesses left, I promise.
I need to go away from it so that
you need to run. You need to run away from it.
Yeah, I do. Okay, let's backtrack out. Who went around Harden's years? Because the thing is, like, the Griffin Harden year, I don't remember very clearly.
Well, this is
I watched that draft, but
this is that draft.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
I just had so many memories of the Henderson and Hansbrough picks, and
I will say there's 2 that you're not getting whatsoever, and I'll just be upfront with you. I'll tell you the 2 later. You're not. I can tell you their college and everything. I will give you their college, even though you did watch. This was the peak of your college, like watching, because of the UNC teams and stuff. And these were guys that played against them. So maybe, but I'll save those hints for later when you're just struggling.
Oh, I thought you were about to throw it out there now. Okay,
sure. You want me to?
Sure.
One of these guys played at Louisville. They were teammates at Louisville. I did not even notice that. These guys were teammates. The 2 you are 100% not getting were teammates at Louisville.
Louisville wasn't in the ACC yet.
That's true.
I don't remember them.
Well, they would have played Carolina if they were in the ACC. My bad.
If they were in the ACC,
never mind. They were teammates at Louisville. They were drafted.
Going outside of that to a different statement, Jeff Teague, 2009 lottery.
I was going to get to him later. He was the 19th pick. That is a great guess. He was Wake Forest at 19.
I don't know if I should double guess this, but Al-Farouq Aminu.
I believe he was a couple years after.
Dang, all right.
I can look that up, but yeah, unfortunately.
I remember how good that Wake Forest team was in 2009.
They were. I believe he was a sophomore on that team.
Good. Very good.
Al.
Duke was bad, so it doesn't help me that year.
It
just came down from being good the year before.
Aminu was 2010.
Dang.
He was the 8th pick. Nice. Good pull.
So I knew he was a lottery pick. It was the year after.
It's a great pull. I'll give you that. It's a great pull.
Duke for Kentucky, not.
Duke was bad, but you got Gerald Henderson.
Calipari wasn't there yet. Calipari was with Rose in Memphis in 2008.
Yeah. There was a Calipari player on this list though. Yeah, I don't think you're getting him either.
He was a Memphis guy. I don't know.
The Memphis guy was very good. Unfortunately.
Feel good?
It's gonna no, absolutely not.
Oh.
Was good. You won't feel bad
Machine the beat,
but I'm gonna have to EQ that really loud down there. Hashif the beat is correct.
Yes.
Hashif the beat.
Got
Hashif
it.
The beat is number 2.
Been trying to think of it for so long.
Yes.
It finally came to me, and just then I couldn't get his name.
Light bulb.
Yeah. Maybe if I started thinking of something else.
You were 1 away from 2 points, my friend.
How many more guesses do I have?
Let's see. 1, 2.
I haven't even tried to keep up.
You have 8 more guesses.
Can you tell me the numbers I've gotten? Like the numbers I've gotten correct.
I'll tell you what you have left because I think it'll be easier.
Okay.
You have the 4th pick, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, and 14.
I gotta find that rookie of the year.
Yeah. There's 2 that I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Well, I just told you, frankly, I don't remember the 09 draft. I'm just going to take no, because he did go in 08.
See, thank you for talking out loud. It makes the segment when I'm editing it for listeners' sake, it makes it a lot easier.
Mm.
They get to hear our thoughts out loud.
I want to say this person was the 09 Rookie of the Year or the 09-10 Rookie of the Year, but I just swear he had to have gone the year before and won it that year.
There's plenty of guesses. All you need is one. You can't get all perfect now. I dare. It's not happening. Just go
Kevin
for it.
Love.
No, Kevin Love was in the Russell Westbrook draft, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I was.
You had nothing to lose. You had
Yeah.
nothing to lose.
Yeah, I can't get 3 points, so might as well just go to the second.
Try to get to. My next hint is we have talked about one of these guys today.
Talk about one of them today.
Nothing that
What
helps.
we talked about today.
You're like, well, not specifically this guy, but like his name was said on this podcast today. That's
Yeah, I'm just gonna remember what we talked about.
I believe there's a 50-point scorer on this list as well. There is a guy that has almost 20,000 points in his career, just behind Steph, surprisingly enough. There's definitely a couple. Will the team that they got drafted by help you in any way?
Oh, well, maybe. I don't really know.
I'm going to tell you them in no particular order.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you them in no particular order. Phoenix, New Jersey, so the Nets at the time, Milwaukee, Toronto, Minnesota, and Sacramento. In no particular order was those teams.
Ricky Rubio.
That was the one we talked about today. Did that Minnesota one help?
That confirmed, for me, of who they took that year. He got picked, and then he didn't come for 2 years. I think I then got another one on. I think I know who New Jersey took.
By the way, this is now just for fun. You're just guessing for fun.
So I'm up 5-2 on the official scoreboard. I think I know who New Jersey took. I just can't. It's the point guard they brought in to try to replace Darren Williams when Williams left. And he was kind of good for a little bit, but he flamed out.
This was the guy also that played at Louisville. This was one of them.
He's a guard. He's a point guard, right? Or am I way off?
I have no idea. I've never heard of him.
Doesn't list it?
Shooting guard, small forward.
Okay.
He was 6'6".
I'm probably not right then on that. No, I'm not right. This is not who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I wouldn't think too hard about it.
What were the other teams? Toronto.
Minnesota.
Who were Lowry and DeRozan picked?
Minnesota,
were either
Sacramento.
of them Lowry or DeRozan?
You're just throwing stuff at the wall now, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't matter at this point.
One of them was DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry.
Okay. Yeah. Which one was it? DeRozan?
Yes.
Okay. What were the other teams? Let's see if I can get them just by rolling through.
Sacramento, Minnesota again.
Minnesota again.
Yeah, Minnesota back-to-back picks.
Johnny, what's his face? Johnny Brewer. What? Am I right? Is it Johnny something?
Johnny Flynn.
Yeah.
All right. Is it? Can we just step out and kind of read them to you?
No. What are the Sacramento and New Jersey? Are those the last one?
Sacramento, New Jersey, and Phoenix. Oh, and Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, we're running up on almost an hour and a half for what it's worth.
Yeah, whatever. We're already at an hour and a half.
Someone has to edit this, and it's me.
I want to see how far I can go with this.
Memphis was a college of one of these guys. Another one of these guys didn't go to college, but he was a baller, like street ball.
So one was an international guy, then he didn't go to college at this point.
No, the guy that was a baller did not go to. He was not international. I don't know what he did. I can't remember, but he did not go to college.
Huh.
He was overseas for a year.
Oh. All right. Yeah, we can tap it out.
All right.
I got enough.
Number one overall pick that year was, like you said, of course, Blake Griffin.
The Clippers.
Yeah. Memphis took Hasheem Thabeet from UConn. Oklahoma City took James Harden. Number 4, the rookie of the year that you're probably going to be like, well, dang, but you shouldn't be mad at yourself. Tyreek Evans.
Yeah.
From Memphis.
This is Sacramento.
Yep. from Memphis, but yes, took by Sacramento. Yes, Minnesota got Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn back to back. Had 2 chances to draft a point guard, and anyway,
kept Ricky, it would have panned out. But
well, still not the right guard, unfortunately. Steph Curry went at 7. Jordan Hill went at 8. DeMar DeRozan.
Wait, say that again. Jordan Hill.
Jordan Hill. Yeah. DeMar DeRozan. Brandon Jennings was your Milwaukee number 10.
Yeah.
50-point scorer, baller.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The one I was fully confident you weren't getting. Were you anywhere close to Terrence Williams to New Jersey?
Not a chance.
Okay. Louisville guy, by the way. Gerald Henderson, Tyler Hansbrough, and then Terrence Williams, Louisville teammate, Earl Clark to Phoenix.
Not a chance there either.
Really quickly before we close it out, a couple of notable names. At 16, the Bulls took James Johnson. That Wake Forest team, as you said, was very good. James Johnson's still playing to this day. It's a good notable pick this far out. Drew Holiday went to Philadelphia at 17. Ty Lawson went to Minnesota Minnesota took 3 guards. And
Minnesota, that was the rights belonged to Denver at that point.
To Denver. Still funny that Minnesota took them. It's just 3 guards. 3 guards, didn't get it right. Ty Lawson. Jeff Teague was 19. Darren Collison, NBA vet for quite some time, played 20,000 minutes in his career. Went 21 to New Orleans. Omri Caspery went 23rd to Sacramento. Byron Mullins went to Dallas at 24. Taj Gibson, Chicago to 26. Damari Carroll went to Memphis at 27. Wayne Ellington went to Minnesota at 28. And then there's a couple more in the back half of the draft. San Antonio drafted Juwan Blair. I always forget to say his name, but he was part of those title teams for them. Pat Beverly went to the Los Angeles Lakers at 42. Danny Green, like you mentioned, Cleveland at 46. And that's it. Oh, Patty Mills went to Portland at 55. That's it. So pretty good draft class. Honestly, there were some ballers and even into the deep part of the second round there. So what a fun question, and congrats on a 5-2 lead. I'm going to have to really claw my way back here unless you just make it really difficult and close me out here basically before the All-Star break.
No, you'll always get the chance on the last night whenever we bring in the neutral party. So,
yep, I am looking forward to it. We're starting to take applications for who that is. If anyone wants to submit that to any of our social medias. I waited too long to do this, but Twitter is at 2Pointers. And oh my gosh, TikTok is at the 2Pointers Podcast, Facebook.com/the 2Pointers Podcast. And first time saying this on the air, Instagram is at the 2Pointers Podcast. We will be posting more of these sound bites and clips and visual stuff. Instagram's a great way to connect with you guys. And definitely make sure to give us a follow on there. And Spotify also has added 5-star ratings. Please, 5-star rating on Spotify. Shout out to Spotify for finally doing that, because I was just saying give us a 5-star everywhere, realizing that nowhere but Apple does it. Mm-hmm. Well, Spotify does it now, so no excuses from you guys. You got us to 35 or 40 very quickly. Let's keep that number up. Josh, let's get out of here.
This has been the 2Pointers Podcast with a 5-2 lead heading into Christmas. I'm Josh.
Merry Christmas, Josh. I'm Trevor.
We will see you soon.